Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel video. Today we talk about why people don't understand English. Many people around the world struggle to understand English, even after studying it for years in school or using it occasionally in daily life. This difficulty is not a sign of low intelligence or lack of ability, rather, it is the result of several interconnected factors that affect how languages are learned and used. English has become a global language of education, business, technology, and communication, yet for millions of learners it still feels confusing, intimidating, and distant. Understanding why this happens is the first step toward overcoming the problem and building confidence in the language. One of the biggest reasons people do not understand English is fear. Fear of making mistakes, fear of being laughed at, and fear of sounding foolish often stop learners from trying at all. Many people know basic English words and grammar rules, but when it comes time to speak or listen, fear takes over. The mind becomes tense, the heart beats faster, and simple sentences suddenly feel impossible. This fear creates a mental block that prevents natural learning. Language is best learned through trial and error, but fear makes people avoid speaking, which slows progress and deepens confusion. Another major reason is the lack of regular practice. English cannot be learned by studying once in a while or memorizing rules before an exam. Like any skill, it requires daily use. Many learners study English in school but never use it outside the classroom. They read textbooks, write answers, and pass tests, yet they do not listen to real English conversations or speak in real-life situations. As a result, their knowledge remains passive. When they hear native speakers talk at normal speed, they cannot follow the conversation because their ears are not trained to the rhythm, sounds, and flow of the language. Weak basics also play a significant role in poor understanding. Many learners move forward without fully understanding the foundation of English, such as basic sentence structure, common vocabulary, and everyday expressions. When the basics are unclear, advanced topics become even more confusing. For example, if someone does not clearly understand tenses or common verbs, listening to conversations or reading articles becomes a struggle. Weak basics create gaps in understanding, and these gaps grow larger over time if they are not addressed early. Limited exposure to English is another important factor. In many countries, English is not spoken in daily life. People may hear it only in classrooms, exams, or occasional movies. This limited exposure makes English feel foreign and unnatural. Language learning depends heavily on immersion, hearing words again and again in different contexts. When exposure is limited, learners cannot develop a natural sense of the language. They may know meanings of words, but they cannot understand them quickly when spoken or used in new situations. Pronunciation and accent differences also cause confusion. English pronunciation is not always logical. Words are often not pronounced the way they are spelled, which confuses learners who rely heavily on written English. Additionally, English has many accents: British, American, Australian, and many others. When learners are exposed to only one accent in textbooks or classrooms, hearing a different accent can feel like listening to a completely new language. This makes understanding spoken English even more challenging. Another reason people struggle is the traditional way English is taught in many schools. Often, the focus is on grammar rules, memorization, and writing rather than listening and speaking. Students learn how to write essays and answer grammar questions, but they are not trained to communicate. Language is meant to be used, not just studied. When teaching methods ignore real-life communication, students may pass exams but still fail to understand spoken English or express their thoughts clearly. Lack of confidence is closely connected to all these problems. When learners believe that English is too difficult for them, they stop trying. Negative self-talk such as, "My English is bad," or, "I can never speak fluently," becomes a barrier to progress. Confidence grows through small successes, but if learners never practice or expose themselves to the language, they never experience these successes. As a result, their confidence remains low, and English continues to feel impossible. Vocabulary overload is another hidden issue. Many learners try to memorize long lists of difficult words instead of focusing on commonly used vocabulary. English has a very large vocabulary, and trying to learn everything at once can be overwhelming. When learners encounter unfamiliar words in every sentence, they feel lost and frustrated. In reality, understanding everyday English requires knowledge of a relatively small number of high-frequency words used in daily conversation. Without focusing on these core words, learners struggle to understand even simple content. Listening is often the most neglected skill in language learning, yet it is essential for understanding English. Many learners spend more time reading and writing than listening. They are not used to the speed, reductions, and connected speech used by native speakers. Words often sound different in conversation than they do in isolation. For example, native speakers link words together, drop sounds, or use informal expressions. Without regular listening practice, learners cannot recognize these patterns, making spoken English sound like noise rather than meaningful language. Cultural differences can also affect understanding. Language is deeply connected to culture, and English includes many idioms, jokes, and expressions that do not make sense when translated literally. Learners who focus only on grammar and vocabulary may feel confused when they hear phrases like, break the ice, or, hit the nail on the head. Without cultural context, these expressions seem illogical. This lack of cultural understanding makes English feel strange and difficult to interpret. Another challenge is inconsistency in learning. Many people start learning English with enthusiasm but stop when progress feels slow. They may study intensely for a few weeks and then take long breaks. Language learning requires consistency over time. Without regular exposure and practice, learners forget what they have learned and feel like they are starting from zero each time. This cycle of starting and stopping leads to frustration and the belief that English cannot be mastered. The influence of the mother tongue is another factor that affects understanding. Learners often think in their native language and then translate into English. This habit slows down comprehension and speaking. English sentence structure and expressions are often different from other languages, and direct translation does not always work. When learners rely too much on translation, they struggle to think naturally in English, which affects both understanding and communication. Technology and social media have changed how English is used, but they also create challenges. Abbreviations, slang, and informal language are common online, and learners may find it hard to understand these forms of English. At the same time, social media provides opportunities for exposure and practice if used correctly. However, without guidance, learners may feel overwhelmed by the variety of language styles they encounter. Motivation plays a key role in language learning. People who have a clear reason for learning English, such as career goals, education, or travel, are more likely to persist despite difficulties. Those who learn English only because it is required may lack motivation. Without strong motivation, learners are less willing to put in the effort needed to overcome challenges. Understanding English requires patience, time, and dedication, which are difficult to maintain without a clear purpose. The good news is that understanding English is possible for anyone with the right approach. Consistency is more important than intelligence or talent. Small daily habits, such as listening to English podcasts, watching videos with subtitles, reading simple texts, and practicing speaking, can make a big difference over time. Confidence grows through practice, and mistakes should be seen as part of the learning process rather than something to fear. Improving listening skills is especially important. Learners should expose themselves to real English as much as possible. Listening to slow, clear content at first and gradually moving to natural speech helps train the ear. Repetition is key. Hearing the same words and phrases again and again in different contexts helps the brain recognize patterns and meaning automatically. Building strong basics is another essential step. Instead of rushing to advanced grammar, learners should focus on understanding simple sentence structures, common verbs, and everyday expressions. A strong foundation makes everything else easier. When basics are clear, confidence increases, and understanding improves naturally. Speaking should be practiced without fear of mistakes. Fluency does not come from perfection, it comes from communication. Learners should focus on expressing ideas, even if grammar is not perfect. Over time, accuracy improves with use. The goal of language is understanding and being understood, not sounding perfect. Exposure to English culture can also help. Watching movies, listening to music, and reading stories in English provide insight into how the language is used naturally. This exposure makes learning more enjoyable and meaningful. It also helps learners understand idioms, humor, and cultural references that are difficult to learn from textbooks alone.